If you want to be able to buy the most expensive players and open the best packs in FC24, go to u7buy.com to buy your EA FC24 coins. It's cheaper than buying FC points and just as reliable. With their already amazing prices, you can get an extra 6% using promo code Inception at checkout. Okay guys, so today we're going to be talking about the new evolutions. It's interesting that they dropped these bad boys, and you know why it's interesting that they dropped these bad boys? Because they know that a lot of these cards, and they need to be proved just a little bit of extra stuffs on it to really be nice in the meta of the gameplay, right? And they know this because most of the showdowns they released recently were kind of trash. Honestly, I would say McAllister was probably the best one, honestly, right? And yeah, they have a bunch of cards you can now evo. Now, take into consideration, okay, that this evolution is out for a while, all right? So as this evolution is out for a while, wait, because SBCs will be coming out, and as the SBCs come out, if they end up getting the results which gives them the W, you can further improve those cards. So these current cards that you're seeing are not the only choices. You could potentially go with Akanji, you could potentially go with Kent, and you could potentially go with some of the SBCs that will be coming out in the future. If you guys haven't checked out the video of talking about some of the leaks that came out for some of the SBCs that are going to be coming out, really look into that, okay? So the first card here that we're going to have is going to be McAllister, who did end up getting the Showdown Plus. McAllister this year has good base mechanics. I actually like this card. Before the upgrade, I was even mentioning it, that this card actually has potential to work with if he does get the improvements in the future, because he's actually pretty decent in game, right? Now, with the further improvements from the Showdown Plus, you put him in an area, you know, on a shadow chemistry style that puts him at a 95 for acceleration, 93 for sprint speed with better defensive capabilities. It just makes him a more all-rounded midfielder. Key things about this card, right? And I mentioned this in the review as well. The press proven working with the relentless, those two together for this card was a noticeable thing with his 5'9" height. It was actually very, very helpful to work with. The left stick was perfectly fine with him as a midfielder. The way that he would commit on the attack, the way that he would utilize his pinged pass, his regular incisive pass. Like for me, I think this card, even with upgrades on Kent, is probably the better choice to go with when it comes down to like the Liverpool players, because the Kent card feels like he doesn't have initial base mechanics transferred over. But like I said, I always tell you guys this, man, we don't know if EA drops a special sauce, because look at what happened to the Italian center back. People like him nowadays, right? So special sauce, you never know, dude, with these upgrades, right? Because I'll never forget Rodrigo Showdown back in the day, man. When I tried that card, I'm like, oh, you know, this card's like this, like that. First card, first time I've ever done this. And then when the upgrade came out, it was like boom, you know? So yeah, the improvements definitely, you know, makes a very, very good difference on these cards. Sungare, it's actually really interesting that they talked about, or it's really interesting that he's dropped as a potential candidate for this, because this card, in my opinion, like even after the upgrade, I wasn't too crazy about him. Like maybe in the center back position, if I rotate him in game, he could be pretty decent in that area. But I personally wasn't like too crazy about this card. And I actually used him recently because he was used in, because Giyu does all the Premier League players, and on a shadow, he's a mostly lengthy player. And, you know, for me, I thought he could be a little bit better. Now, obviously, with the improvements, there could be a lot of potential to work with, right? I think it's because of the lack of play styles that makes me not like him as much as I probably should. I think if this was a card from back in the day and there wasn't playstyles, I think he would be significantly better. But if you did this exact same thing to the Chouameni card, I feel like base mechanics wise, you would probably get a little bit more out of the card personally, right? But I guess it depends as well. With the improvements, do I see people choosing this as an option? If they still have the card and they improved them, yes, because he could still be a pretty decent CDM. You guys are gonna laugh at this, man, but for some reason I like Skip more, and you guys know I use the Premier League cards a lot, but you know that Future Star Skip card, that guy intercepts everything. You know, the intercept plus on that card is super noticeable in game, like super noticeable, one of the most noticeable, because I use midfielders that have intercept plus and it's not as noticeable. Like they do it obviously, but it's not like their main thing. And it's funny because usually I wouldn't tell you like, oh yeah, the smaller players I'm not like really crazy about, but for me, CDM wise, I like that Skip card more. if you actually watch the if you watch the tweets, if you watch the community post, I actually mentioned that I like Skip as my top 2 for the midfielders. It was him and Lohman. That one was the one that was like not as interesting, but the attacker and defender ones were a little bit more meta to work with. Like with defenders, I would go with, I believe I said it was Gertruda as well as Svava, because Svava is actually really, really nice. And then the attackers was Atenia, even though the playstyles don't match her, and then Okafor as well, right? But yeah, from this selection here, I think there can be better options. We have Corboz, who gets an improvement as well. So for people who are, building this sort of team with the French players that play in this league, obviously, I would say mainly for the links to Diani, who's really, really nice in game, very, very solid player. There's potential to work with. As of right now, she kind of looks like the attacking oriented center mid, with the shadow chemistry style boosting the pace as well as defense to be as high as possible. Would I personally go in this direction for long-term meta? Probably not, but for people who are building, that sort of team, why not, right? Malcom gets a new improvement as well. I think he's strangely formatted, right? If I remember correctly, yeah, he's a little bit strangely formatted. Could be a decent card for people to potentially give like a finisher chemistry style into, but like I remember doing the review for this card and remembering back in the day that he was strangely formatted. This card kind of needs like base improvements to be in a decent area on a marksman, I would say, or potentially a hawk. Not to say that you can't do work with this card, but because you can, to be honest, but I just don't think he's gonna be, a top tier option for this. Like he wasn't even that popular during that time period. So after the improvements, not looking too crazy either, because right now with this Showdown, plus if Akanji gets the upgrades, that's the main one to look at, right? In my opinion. Mudryk gets one, which is interesting because obviously with the Mudryk card, he was like probably one of the initial okay ones, like it wasn't like a crazy special card in game, but he was pretty decent to work with, right? In comparison to some of the other cards that are here. With this card, the improvements puts him in a pretty decent area, to be fair. I think it's really nice that his base card stats are, massively improved in multiple areas of the card. You could potentially give him like a marksman, I would say, to boost the dribbling to be a little bit higher with the reactions while giving him the shooting boost for usability, just to kind of make him a card that you can use a little bit more. The marksman boosts his areas very nicely, but again, I think that with the current evolutions coming out, they might be the better meta options, I would say. But Chelsea-wise, Mudryk could still be really decent in game, right? I've used this card sometimes after the improvement, but not like a lot of times. Like I'd rather just use like a Gabriel Magalhães or something instead of, this card, in my opinion. But sorry guys, I was just working on the uploads for Akanji and Kent. Yeah, and then last one here is the Purce card, who, to be honest, if people did end up doing her, they definitely don't have her anymore, no chance. And she's a 4-star, 3-star, so not too crazy interesting. So again, guys, very, very important to mention that with this evolution, okay, look into potential cards in the future, okay? So look, there's certain cards here. Akanji versus Clark, if they get a +2, who looks better, right? Those two, right? We gotta mention this. That's just like a regular upgrade, right? But if it's a Showdown Plus, if it's the way that I imagined, right? If this card gets upgraded, this is going to be the main guy, okay? He will be the main guy for the meta. He's the top tier guy for the selections that you're going to potentially have, okay? It's going to be him. I think McAllister is probably going to be a good choice as well. I think McAllister will definitely be a solid choice too. Because Kent, Kent right now, I don't know how he's going to be in the future if he gets the improvement, right? But McAllister, I think like he makes a little bit more sense to work with too, because the card's actually pretty decent. Like I like him more. I like him from a base perspective more than Kent as of right now. But again, Kent could get better if EA drops on him, And then there's the other cards too, right? So just remember that there's these cards linked as well. So if you're doing some of the women's team, like Dunn could be kind of crazy, Dunn has a lot of potential because Dunn was actually one of the choices in the beginning of the year from this one right here, the midfielder one, right? So if she gets the improvement, that could be a pretty crazy card if you're actually working with those sort of players, right? There's also the other cards that we've already talked about before too, like Izak, Chilwell, right? If they get the wins and then you can do the Evo improvement on them, that would be a big deal. But then it's these two cards right here. But for me, guys, the absolute top choice for the evolutions that I've seen so far is probably going to be a Kanji or another two big cards. Okay, another two big cards. These bad boys right here, João Felix and Memphis Depay. Okay, if any of those two get a win and you can upgrade them even further, that would be a really big deal to work with too. Okay, we can't see their stats right now because they're obviously not available, but wait is all I'm saying, right? Try to do it like close to the end as much as possible. Decide what you want to do, go with the cards you end up getting the W's for, and then go from there. Okay, because there's a lot of potential to work with. I think Akanji is probably going to be the top tier list, honestly, because he has base mechanics that I'm liking a lot. João Felix is going to be in there as well if he gets the win, because Depay, it depends on how they improve him base card stats wise in the dribbling department mainly, with a 4-star weak foot at the very least, right? McAllister is definitely going to be a good choice too. Like there's I would say 4 pretty decent choices if they get the W, like 4 or 5, I would say. Like those are like the main ones. Okay, so just be mindful of that when looking into these Showdown evolutions. Okay, thank you guys for watching the video. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.